Oh no, I'm gonna upload another video. It's a double upload. That's because I remembered that supposedly they're putting the Forgotten Heroes on the Iron Throne this week, which, first of all, that's exciting. That's good. I'm glad I can play with those. But then there's this other set on the Thrones DB right now called Jade C. When I saw this, I was like, what is this? And I asked about it. Apparently, this is a collaboration with Korean players. So the meta, as you call it, the player base in Korea, apparently wanted to print some new cards of their own. And I remembered that being the case, but I quickly dismissed it because I was like, oh, well, it's over in Korea. I mean, who cares? But I guess if they're collaborating with the design team people that did the Forgotten Heroes, then maybe we will actually see versions of these cards come out on the Iron Throne and we'll be able to play them here. Also, it would be cool to actually be able to play with people from Korea somehow. I don't know if that's ever going to happen, probably not, but that would be nice. I mean, having some type of crossplay. Anyways, now that there's a possibility that maybe they'll actually be playable at some point and they're on the Thrones DB, obviously, I like to look at new cards. I got excited and looked at them, so I'm going to make a quick review of them. I say quick, it's probably not going to be quick, but you know what I mean. And these are still being play tested, apparently. They said the cards are going to change a lot before they actually come out, which is totally appropriate, but it's still fun to look and see what they are for the time being. One thing I'll say for these cards compared to the Forgotten Heroes, you can tell they're designed by like different people and maybe with a different mindset. So with the Forgotten Heroes, it's so first of all, the cards in that set are all very complicated. They all have like two abilities and tons of text on them, which, maybe some people would complain about that. I think that's fine at this stage in the game. Official support for the game has stopped. The community is greatly reduced, or the number of people playing seems to be a lot less. So it's like if you're still here and sticking around this long, then you should be in the game, like in on a level where you can appreciate cards that have more complexity to them, if that makes sense. Uh, Whereas these cards, this Jade C set, I think it's fine for people to put out cards like that where they're sort of trying to push the boundaries and make weird cards and sort of develop new things that haven't really been done by other cards yet. These cards feel a lot more like I don't want to call them simple, but they're more like cards. They feel closer to a standard pack that would come out, where it's just like, they sort of go along and they don't feel that much different from most of the type of cards that are already out there. And some of them are kind of exciting, but they're not like crazy. They feel more like normal cards, if that makes sense, which is also fine. I mean, if anything, I think it's cool to have sort of both approaches in play. So let's see what they've got here. Smuggling vessel. So we've got the Baratheon warship smuggling theme coming back, which is a zero cost location. That's notable. Action: kneel a smuggler character and smuggling vessel to choose and kneel a location. Uh, Unfortunately, there's just not enough cheap smugglers, right? So this is in the same pack, King's Landing Smuggler. This is a neutral smuggler that costs 2. But the only other one is like Wily Smuggler. You don't really want to kneel anything else. Like even River Runner, it would hurt to have to kneel that for that effect. Plus, you're using 2 cards to neutralize one of the opponents. Like, this is taking up a card slot, and you're kneeling this, and you're kneeling a character. So, unfortunately, I think this is bad. Honestly, I think this might be fine if it was a 0 cost and it was just kneel smuggling vessel to kneel a location, or kneel a non-limited. You don't want to make it usable on economy. Because even if that was the case, there'd be a lot of matchups where it's either a dead card or does very little. With the way it is now, it's not that great, even in matchups where it has an application. I guess it's like you might be worried that it's too much of a silver bullet against Night's Watch then, but this is still a silver bullet if you don't like Night's Watch. You can include this to tech against it. It's just worse in like other matchups, if that makes sense. I think, if it was considered too powerful by just making it kneel smuggling vessel to kneel a location, then make it cost 1 or something. I don't know. It just feels borderline unplayable unless you would just hate Night's Watch that much with the way it is here. The support of the Iron Bank. This is 0 cost loyal Baratheon event. Action: kneel your faction card to reduce the cost of each Baratheon Non-character card, you marshal or play this phase by 1. Again, unfortunately, I think this is bad. Uh, it's like maybe playable if for some reason you wanted to play 3 or more locations on a particular turn. Like, I don't know. So it's like the opposite of passing the Black Gate, the Stark event that reduces the cost of Stark characters. This reduces the cost of everything that's not a character. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, this would include attachments. So you can use this in the stupid R'hllor attachments deck to supplement the 4-cost Selice, I guess. Okay, maybe in that type of rush deck, that's where you play it. Most of the time, most decks, I don't think you use this, but that's fine. Silence. So I have a new version of Silence. It's nice to have another version besides the 4-cost version. While you control Euron Crowseye, he gains Pillage. This is another weird case of these, cards that give keywords or other things to specific characters where they're giving something that a version of the character already has. One of those that's really unfortunate is Willa's Tyrell gives Sir Garland Tyrell Renown, and like the better version of Sir Garland already has Renown, so I hate that so much. It's like a missed opportunity. It should have given him like Intimidate or +2 Strength or something. I also think that 4-cost Garland having Renown and the 6-cost version not having it is just incorrect. Maybe that was a design mistake. Like, why does the 4-cost character get Renown but the 6-cost doesn't? Anyway, same thing here. Obviously, one version of Euron already has Pillage, although the 6-cost version does not. Notably, you can combine this with the 6-cost version. If you don't want the 4-cost Silence, you can just get this one instead. Or you could have like both versions in your deck and get the one that you want and like pick and choose. I don't know. There's some potential there, I guess. This is reaction. After a card is discarded using Pillage, kneel Silence to put it into play under your control. At the end of the phase, if it's still in play, shuffle it into its owner's deck. Cool ability. I like the ability. This is the type of thing that would make a Pillage deck more viable. Are Pillage decks ever going to be a thing? Nothing has made them a thing yet, despite people's best efforts. I doubt that this card would be enough to push them over the edge, but if you're going to play a Pillage deck, this card would definitely be in it. That's the only deck where you would run it, though. The giving Euron Pillage is definitely not worth it in any deck besides like a dedicated Pillage deck. Now I'm thinking, are we going to see Red Door Silence decks with Pillage spam? But you could already do that with Corpse Lake, and it never really caught on. I mean, you can do it as a meme deck. It's just not that good, so this probably won't be that good either. Foam Drinker. This is a 1-cost warship, and this is like the unique warship for Dagmar Cleftjaw, I guess. This gives Dagmar +2 strength. And then reaction after no defenders are declared during a military challenge, each attacking captain or raider character gains Pillage until the end of the challenge. Weird ability with a lot of conditions. Like, it's a lot of conditions just to gain Pillage. I think this is a one-of if you're playing Dagmar. Maybe not even then. Maybe only because it's a 1-cost warship in that case. So if you want like cheap warships, this can be one. But other than that, you probably never play this. If you're not playing Dagmar, like even in a Pillage deck, that ability is not worth it. There's already plenty of better and easier sources of Pillage than that reaction. Milk Snakes. This is a cost 3, 2 strength clansman with only a military icon, ambush 4, and stealth. I don't ever see this being playable. I'm trying to think like maybe in a Clansman Sea of Blood deck because that makes the stealth matter. Or just like a Clansman deck that's running 3 copies each of Put to the Sword and Put to the Torch, and you want to enable those and you need the stealth to help you do that. 9, even then I'm not sure, but those are the instances I can think of where it's like, okay, I might play this card. In any normal deck, there's no way. Military single icon is bad, and with that aside, it's like, well, just play Burned Men. Like, the stealth is absolutely not worth being more expensive in a normal deck. Yeah, that's enough of that about that card. Sir Boros Blount, that name, Boros Blount. 2 cost, 1 strength, military intrigue, Kingsguard, and Knight. So there's another Kingsguard character, but a very weak one. And he has Shadow 3, so he's a 5-cost card to bring out of Shadows. Reaction: after he enters play, search the top 10 cards of your deck for a Kingsguard or a non-Lannister Knight character and put it into play. Shuffle your deck. At the end of the phase, if it's still in play, discard it from play. So, lots of combo potential with this card. First off, it's a flea bottom card, and a very powerful one at that. What else was I going to say? Oh, it's non-loyal, so the Queen of Thorns that brings cards out of Shadows, you can banner this card in and bring it out with her, which is kind of cool, with that enters play trigger. It's Kingsguard or non-Lannister Knight, so obviously this is for like Knight decks or banner decks or Kingsguard decks. There's plenty of traits to play with there. And another thing to note, though, is it's discarded if it's still in play, but there's nothing stopping you from bouncing it back to your hand. And there's a lot of cards that can combo with this to bounce stuff back to hand. So like in a Lannister Shadow deck with Robert Strong and Mandon Moore, you can bounce them back to hand with the what is that card called? The Regent's Guard. That's the card that bounces like a big Lannister character to come out of Shadows. You could bring something into play with this, Mandon Moore or Robert Strong, use them in challenges, bounce them back to your hand to put the Regent's Guard into play, and you know they're not going to be discarded, they got bounced back to your hand. You can also bounce stuff back to your hand with Tower of the Hand. The Iron Bank will have its due. There's probably a couple others that are bad, but those are the two big ones that come to mind, especially the Iron Bank event. There's definitely potential there, I think. You know, you can, in a Kingsguard deck, you put your Barristan Selmy into play with this. You Iron Bank it back in your hand for 7 challenge phase gold that you spend on, I don't know, the Hound or something. And then the next turn you do the White Swords to put Barristan into play permanently from your hand as an 11 gold plot. Like, that's pretty good, right? So even though his stats are so terrible for his cost, that's why he's 5 to bring out of Shadows, because I understand them wanting to be a bit cautious with that ability. I expect I'll have fun with it. And of course, you can bounce Boros himself to reuse his ability, although it is expensive to keep using him over and over again. Elia Sands, it's about time she got a new version. Although the version she has is decent enough, but I think a lot of the other Sand Snakes have 2 versions now. Cost 3, Strength 3, Military Intrigue, so good stats, Bastard Sand Snake. And then Interrupt: when she leaves play, choose an opponent's character. Until the end of the phase, that character loses a challenge icon of your choice, and each Sand Snake character you control gains that challenge icon. So potentially annoying for people to declare military challenges against this, but a lot of times military becomes irrelevant against Martell anyways. It's like, who cares? I'm just not going to do military. So obviously the potential of this card is more with bouncing in and out of play effects. Now, how good are those going to be? Are they going to make this card good? I don't know. You could Iron Bank this as well. That sees some play in Martell. You can use this notably with the 5-cost Obara Sand, who like returns a Sand Snake to your hand to put a different character into play. This would actually be a card that could combo with her. Normally she just returns herself to hand, but you could do this and then put like a Greenblood Trader into play or something like that, and it would be a pretty good ability then. I think there's a good chance that there just won't be enough efficient ways to bounce her around in challenge phase, but if there are, definitely an interesting card. Brimstone, speaking of Sand Snakes, they're trying to give Sand Snakes a dedicated location here. So now you're going to play House of the Red Door Brimstone and have Sand Snakes, and that's going to be the new Martell deck. Probably not, but I like the idea. It's just action, kneel Brimstone to choose a character. Until the end of the phase, that character gains a challenge icon of your choice, and it gives all your Sand Snakes +1. Definitely not as good as Starfall, but maybe still worth it if you're going to play a Sand Snake deck. I don't know, but obviously you can put it in Sand Snake decks, and there's a Red Door deck that you can try, and maybe it'll be fun. I like them at least trying to support the theme, because Sand Snakes, you know, especially with the Martell box, all the card designs have tried to push Sand Snakes, and it just never really works. It doesn't end up being that great. Left Hand Lou is a Night's Watch 3-cost 2 strength, steward, military intrigue, no attachments except weapon, action, kneel, left hand Lu to choose and stand a character owned by an opponent. So he's a card for a recruitment deck. He's a one of in a recruitment deck. Recruitment decks suck, but you might as well toss one of these guys in there. 3 for 2 with those icons isn't bad for that deck, for this ability. And maybe Steward decks, the Night's Watch Reigns of Castamere Steward deck, if that ever becomes, if I ever play that again, if I ever see anyone else play that again, maybe he's a one of in that deck just for that Steward trait. Old Steward, this is a weird card. Cost 2, Strength 2, Intrigue icon, +1 reserve. Again, who cares about +1 reserve? I've yet to see anything make me think that boosting your reserve value matters or is a decent idea. Maybe I can take that back and say that maybe it matters a little bit if you combo it with siege preparations. The problem is Night's Watch has not been a faction that that's a really janky way to get draw, and Night's Watch has never been a faction that needed draw that badly to try and do something like that. So yeah, it probably just doesn't matter. I think he goes in Steward decks and nowhere else. And maybe not even in Steward decks, but maybe, just because he's a 2/2 Intrigue Steward, you might use him there. Greywater Watch is House Reed. So this is a 3-cost Stark location. I guess this is where the Reeds live. Action, kneel Greywater Watch to choose a Stark character you control and kneel that character to have it participate in the challenge on your side. So it's more of the Stark theme of adding characters to challenges in the middle of the challenge. Probably too expensive for what it does. Probably not worth it. But definitely has the potential to be an annoying location. You could make, I guess, like a red door deck with this, and I'm not sure what the utility there would be that you're looking for, but it's an option, I suppose. You can, I guess it would have to be effects that, I'm sitting here trying to think, and I'm just not coming up with much besides the 3-cost Shaggy Dog, which is funny. I mean, yes, that would be amusing if you could do that, but there's already ways to do that and screw people over. Like, you don't really need this location for it. I don't think it's good enough to just go in a general Stark deck, and I'm not sure that it does enough to be worth like some type of dedicated deck that goes with this theme. But who knows, one day maybe I'll make a red door deck with this and it'll be something. The Winter Maid 0-cost song event. Action, kneel your faction card. Until the end of the phase, your revealed plot card gains the Winter trait, draw 1 card. I mean, this type of card usually is irrelevant and doesn't do anything. Maybe it goes in Stark, Dark Wings, Dark Words. I'm not sure. Even in a Winter deck, it's like, I'm trying to think. I guess you could put it in Winter decks, and maybe it makes them a little bit better and gives them a bit more flexibility with plots. If you put like 2 of these in there and you have a couple non-Winter plots, I would say maybe in that case if you want to do a Winter deck. Grey Worm, new version for Grey Worm, that's good. His old version was like outdated at this point. So he's Companion and Guard, 5/5 with Military and Intrigue, no attachments except weapon, and if you have fewer cards in hand than the attacking player, Grey Worm does not kneel when declared as a defender. So basically like the Barristan that stands himself up when he's attacking. Actually, no, that Barristan is in any challenge that he goes in. But basically his condition is after he wins, he stands up if they have fewer cards in hand. It's like an opponent has fewer cards condition. This is a good card. I think you could just toss one of these in any random Targaryen deck and it might end up being good, especially because Targaryen obviously a lot of times depends on blowing a lot of stuff out of their hand and has a lot of ways to like discard out of their hand to make him not kneel unexpectedly. And so, any discard deck, he's going to be in there because of this ability. Pretty solid card. And this is weird. They gave Tyrion a Targaryen version. Have the books advanced to that point, or is it like, do they just not care at this point? I would be fine with cards being made based on the show, but probably a lot of older players would not be happy with that. Either way, this is a 4-cost Targaryen character. It's freaking me out that it's Tyrion. Strength 3, Intrigue and Power again. So he's a mercenary, and he's not a lord. which I guess is appropriate but interesting. Bestow 3, he still has stealth. Action, discard 1 gold from Tyrion Lannister to put a mercenary character into play under your control from any player's discard pile. At the end of the phase, if it's still in play, put it on the bottom of the deck. So he's... Oh man, I lost my train of thought. I think, again, this is a good card. I think it's not that difficult to find, if you're just any random Targaryen deck, I don't think it'll be hard to find room for him, because the stats with his stealth makes him decent enough, and then the action is sort of like a bonus. Let's see, Targaryen has a decent number of mercenaries, I think. Oh, geez, they're not sorted by faction. What am I doing? Yeah, it looks like Targaryen easily has the most. So Brown Ben, Dario, this is really strong. You can put Dario into play with this. Maybe that's not that strong, Hired Assassin, but obviously Second Sons, I knew they were a mercenary. Titan's Bastard. And what? Oh, Old Bill Bones a mercenary. I mean, it's not a huge amount, but I think there's enough that you could make it work pretty easily. And notably, Brown Ben Plum, Dario, Second Sons, these are cards that a lot of Targaryen decks might just randomly use. They don't really need any specific mercenary synergy to throw him in there. So that means he'll obviously be better and be more playable in mercenary decks. And again, in discard decks where you just throw 20 cards in your discard pile, and probably one of them is going to be a mercenary. They gave Randall Tarley a new version. Now, this is unfortunate because I understand trying to give all the big characters more than one version, but it kind of hurts to see another card with that name, because the core set version is just so much of a cornerstone that I don't expect to ever see any alternate version over him very often. But they have tried. So this version is a knight and a lord. I wonder if I don't think the first version was a lord. I don't know if he's a knight or not, but he's not Sir Randall Tarley. He's just Randall Tarley. So that knight trait is a bit weird. I actually didn't realize that at first. I mean, maybe that makes this version better for knight decks if you want to play big knights. Anyways, he has Renown again. His action is weird. It's kneel the reach location to either stand an army character or reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a location, draw it, and if it has the reach trait, put it into play instead. So there's no limit on this, first of all. I should point that out. No limit. What are you doing? I guess you should give it a limit. Technically it's limited by the number of the reach locations, but still. One card that comes to mind that this goes with is the 6-cost Intimidate army that gets +4 and Intimidate when it's summer. I think it's King Renly's Host. Obviously standing that is pretty ridiculous. That could put... The problem is you have to have them out at the same time, though, and having a 7 and a 6 out together is so much different from having a 6 that can just stand itself. But still, this is an army deck card. If armies ever become a thing, then he'll be in that deck. Other than that, I don't think he ever gets used. The other part of the ability is cute. It just gives it sort of something to do when you're not standing armies with it. But the first part is obviously what matters. Let's try searching for the reach. There's a ton of locations that have the reach, but the thing is you just can't make your deck can't be 30 the reach locations. You can't get away with that. You're going to have to try really, really hard, and you might be able to get up to 10 locations that have the reach trait. So the idea that you're just going to be sitting there comboing these reach locations into play is very unlikely. Although I guess I will say, now that I think about that, that means he also goes with the Tyrell cards that put cards on top of your deck. I guess what is the agenda? The Maester agenda? I guess he goes in the Maester agenda deck, because you can switch the reach location from under your agenda on top of your deck. And then you get the High Garden into play for free. Just draw it and put it straight into play. Maybe, okay, that's pretty cool. That's a meme, but if you can do that, in that specific deck, Tyrell Conclave, maybe he's good. I'm trying to think of other Tyrell effects. There's effects that let you look at the top card, and then there's effects that put a card on top of your deck. And unfortunately, the second type is a lot less common, I think. The main one that comes to mind is the 6-cost Mace, which again could be pretty decent, but you have to play the 6-cost Mace, and it's like you have to have him comboing with this card, and it's probably like 2 conditional, and good luck making it work. Sir Bryce Caron, this is another Rainbow Guard. I guess I like Rainbow cards. He's also a Kingsguard, though, because Rainbow Guard, and he's a Lord. So he's Kingsguard, Knight, and Lord. He has all the traits going on. And his stats are 5-3 with the Knight, military and power. But each Knight character you control gets +1 strength. So really he's 5-4. He goes in Knight decks. Yep, maybe he's a one-of with the 6-cost Marjorie. But other than that, solid card for Knight decks. Doesn't really need much more explanation, I don't think. Here we have another Knight. Sir Vardis Egan finally gets a card. So he's Guard, House Aaron, and Knight, and he only has a military, but while he's standing, he's considered to be participating in each challenge in which you control another defending House Aaron character. Now the issue here is how many House Aaron characters are in the game. It can't be very many. Okay, so there's Vale Refugee. This has House Aaron, but it's banned because it's from the bin pack. So there's Lysa Aaron, Lynn Corbry, and Bronze Yam Royce. That's it. Snowcastle has the House Aaron trait? Anyways. There's 3 besides him in the whole game. So, a dedicated House Aaron deck isn't really a thing. I remember when the Prince That Was Promised first came out, I think people were trying to play the Prince That Was Promised with Lynn Corbry. So if you're playing Prince That Was Promised, I guess you could do it with Lysa too. You do like Stark Prince That Was Promised and play Lysa with Wyman and just kill her every turn and revive her with the agenda. If you're playing Prince That Was Promised with one of these cards, maybe he's a one-of, but that's probably it. Like, even if you have one of these on the field, I think he's not that great, even then. But, like, that would be the precondition for him being playable, would be one of these other House Aaron characters being in play on your side. Without those, he's obviously garbage. I don't expect to ever see him. King's Landing Smuggler. This is a Bestow support card. This is 2 cost, 1 strength military neutral character. And interrupts when he leaves play. Place 1 gold from the treasury on a card without gold. Notably, you can combo him with Flea Bottom and place gold back onto Flea Bottom if Flea Bottom is then out of gold. So he's a card for Bestow decks. He's a chud for Bestow. Other than that, you probably never use him. If I look hard enough, maybe I can find some cheeky spots where he could go. But I think for now, he's going to be limited to, bestowing. A War Without Banners this is like Old Bill Bone, but he's a plot. 5-3-1, war, for whatever that matters. Someday, eventually, we're supposed to get war plots. I don't know that this is good enough of a war plot to make the new version of the Wars to Come worth playing. I don't think so. But yeah, if you don't like people kneeling their faction cards, this kneels them. When revealed, kneel each player's faction card. Pretty simple. There's certain specific decks that you don't like that are hobbled without their faction card kneel, like Sea of Blood or something, then you play this. City Festival. This is a cool plot because it's an economy plot, and whenever I see an economy plot, I'm like, oh, is this going to be my new gold plot that's going to let me play cards that are more expensive than I could get away with before? It's City Kingdom. When revealed, gain 3 gold and gain 6 instead if there are 2 or more city plots in your use pile. So the 6 instead makes it an 8 gold plot. So it's either 5 or 8, and the 8 is what you're looking for. So you can do like, oh man, I don't know if it makes the whole stacking city plots thing good, but it definitely makes it more possible to try to do that. At the gates into something else, and then into this would be pretty solid. Oh man, I guess you can do the one that puts the non-uniques into play. What is it called? All right, now we're talking. So you can do At the Gates, manning the city walls, which is 10 cost if you get a 6 cost non-unique into City Festival for 8 gold. I see how, that makes for pretty solid support for a deck that's like playing big army characters. So this is, it's kind of getting my wheels turning. If you want to play big non-uniques, you want to play those Valyrian's crews and roaming wolf packs. That can be your plot lineup, and that's actually pretty decent. And then you can actually have money and play cards. So I like that. Oh man, there's the Martell one. It's like 6 cost and has Intimidate. There's Starfall Cavalry. Yeah. Overall, some of these are bad and borderline unplayable, but that's fine. I expect any pack to have like at least half the cards are probably going to be basically that. And there's some that are at least interesting, and most importantly, there's none that look broken. Trying to double check and make sure. But yeah, I don't see anything here that makes me think like, oh man, we're going to have a new restricted list because of this card. Yeah, definitely not. Which is the most important thing to me. So these look fun. I hope that versions of them come out on the Iron Throne eventually. They do continue to support some underdeveloped themes, and I do like to see that. And I'm sure the design team wants to get this King's Landing Smuggler in there so they can push their bestow. We'll see if they get away with that. So yeah,